Welcome to our Infrastructure Engineering Recruitment webinar. I'm your host for this afternoon. My name is Mimi, and I'm a Talent Acquisition Manager here at DWP Digital. My team and I are responsible for finding and bringing in good digital specialists. We work very closely with our managers and digital experts to really understand who and what we're looking for. And with me today is Bryan Nelson. Bryan, go on and introduce yourself to our audience.
Hi everybody, thanks for this opportunity first of all to speak to everybody. My name is Bryan Nelson. I work in DWP Digital Group in an area called Technology Services, and I head up hybrid hosting transformation.
Fantastic. We've brought the big guns to woo you here today, guys, okay? So many thanks for watching this interactive webinar today. It should run for approximately 30 minutes. We'll be giving you an overview of who we are here at DWP Digital, what we do, importantly, what our values and ambitions are. And hopefully you'll see that this is a workplace you would want to be a part of, working with others who care very passionately about public service and who really want to make a difference and deliver for our customers. You'll be informed about our recruitment process as well as the job opportunities here. But we would love to hear from you directly, as this is quite interactive. It would be awesome to find out your name and where you're tuning in from. So do let us know. So type down in the chat window now who you are and where you are from, please. All right, I'm trying to get my technology together here. Okay. Oh, we got Stephen. Stephen in the house. Hey, Stephen. Thanks for joining us.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having us.
Fabulous. We also have Steve from Kidderminster. Oh, that's a new one for me. Oh, we've got Steve from Blackpool, Matt from Newcastle, Jean-Francois from Reading. Love it. We've got Ran from Wolverhampton. I almost did a Wolverhampton there. That would have been awful. Ian from Newcastle. Aaron from Newcastle as well. We've got Michael from London. Okay, I'm close to London too. Richard from Nottingham. I went to university in Nottingham. Great city. Thanks for joining us. We've got Matt from Rotherham. Hello, Matt. Awesome. So different area codes. Wow. Thank you guys so much for joining us. So keeping up with this energy, can I ask that you start typing away those burning questions that you want answered as it relates to infrastructure and recruitment? So again, tell us your name, where you're connecting from this afternoon, and of course, your questions as well. So I expect you're tuning in to understand our infrastructure engineering culture, our methodology, our skill consideration and ways of working. Hopefully by the end of this webinar, you should, all of those should be addressed. Now, let me tell you, we are doing some really exciting work here at DWP Digital. Some of those things are leveraging data and technology to best optimize our user journeys and ensure our customers get access to the right service in good time when they need it. Again, please interact with us. Type out in the message window your name, location, and your question. Okay, we want this to be interactive. There's going to be a Q&A allotted time at the end of proceedings, so get those questions in. Also, for those questions we're unable to address live, we'll email you a response in the preceding days. Okay? All right. So I've been going on a bit now, so I'm going to hand you over to our main man, the man with the answers, Bryan, who will explain a bit more about who we are and what we do. Bryan, thank you so much for joining us today. And perhaps you can start by telling us what range of projects can an infrastructure engineer work on within DWP Digital?
Yeah, sure. And thanks for that question, Mimi. Yeah, so within DWP Digital Group, and particularly where we're advertising these 6 current roles that we have, ultimately the organisation that we work in, which is Technology Services, we have responsibility for all the hosting and infrastructure services right across DWP. So essentially anything that's getting delivered within DWP goes through our area. Specifically though, when we're looking at the roles that we're looking at here, we've got positions which cover network and telecommunications. So the kind of projects that we're looking at there is really transforming our traditional network. It's an incredibly exciting area which we're just moving into. So, we very much have a traditional infrastructure setup at the minute, and we're a part of a massive transformation program at the minute. So the kind of projects people are going to be working on there is around our move to software-defined networks, for which an infrastructure engineer is absolutely critical to achieving that. Additionally, as well, we've got roles in security operations. Security for an organisation the size of basically DWP, and for the data and the services that we hold, security is an incredibly important area. So we're always looking to build and modernise on the services we've got. We need to reflect that threat that exists to us. So we're developing areas in there. We need to build modern services. So the projects in there is going to be about strengthening our security operations. So we've got the ability to identify, to protect the services, and critically to respond. So, in that space, there'll be projects around that. We have roles as well around lead cloud infrastructure and domain architecture as well. Once again, a really exciting area, because in the domain architecture space, that's where we define the common ways of delivering services, the patterns. So the projects that people who are successful in that role, they'll be delivering basically the future ways that projects are going to deliver their services. So it's going to be very much working with projects to understand their requirements, and building those reusable shared components, both in our on-premise data centers and in our cloud data centers. So, really though, Mimi, that's the tip of the iceberg for what we deal with and what we get involved in. And this is our current round of recruitment, and we're always looking for more people. So, it's a very broad church.
Thank you so much for that detail, Bryan. And what does a typical day look like for our infrastructure engineers?
A typical day for an infrastructure engineer. Partly what I've just explained there is there's such a wide variety of projects that successful candidates can be assigned to. So it's really, really difficult to say, what a standard day looks like. There isn't a standard day in DWP. I can absolutely give you the certainty, though, you're never going to have a boring day. Your days are very much going to be full. But where we can talk about is basically DWP, the digital group's approach. So DWP Digital Group, we've adopted an agile delivery methodology. So we follow the standard agile practices. So, for anybody who's successful with a position for us, I would anticipate a standard day for them is going to start with a daily stand-up where they're working in multidisciplinary with the teams. They're going through the backlog of the work they've got on. But with that as well, there's likely to be other agile ceremonies. They might be doing backlog refinement. They could be doing some story point estimating. Could be doing retrospectives. They could be having sessions with the business to capture requirements. They might be getting involved in live changes to systems and planning that out. So, we follow a standard delivery methodology, which people, gives us consistency in the way in which we work, but very much, very broad once again, and just, exciting opportunities.
Wonderful. Sounds like the scale of the operation is absolutely huge, Bryan. What does our technology stack look like?
Our technology stack, once again, DWP, we deliver with the largest government organisation in terms of IT technology. So you can imagine we've got, in terms of technology stacks, we deal with lots of technologies, but try to boil that down and give a good indication to, the people who've joined us on the call today. We have an on-premise hosting data center. So we very much deal with physical computer, storage, networks, and then we have cloud-based services. So if I focus a little bit on the on-premise side of things, for example, we strategically we follow what we call an x86 architecture, which is kind of modern day computing, which very much is the kind of computing that you get within a cloud, because we're hybrid hosting. So we want to align our technologies with cloud so we can seamlessly work between those two environments. For people who, on the call who care about that kind of infrastructure, we do have a range of other platforms, though. We have mainframe systems, which we're looking to get rid of, but we do still have mainframe systems. We have things called Oracle Spark or Solaris, other people may know about it, and AIX. So that's very much from a physical infrastructure perspective. But then as we move through the technology stack, for example, where it comes to operating systems, we're essentially a Linux organization, and our preferred operating system of choice is Linux. There's a few flavors of that, but we tend to have more what we call Red Hat Enterprise Linux. And we also focus on Windows as well, where we have Windows technology stacks. Within the database space, we have SQL and non-SQL type database services. And then you can move up the application stack as well. If people have got questions, we can certainly dive into some more detail around all of that. When we move to the cloud, cloud's an interesting space because we have in cloud what we call a shared responsibility model. So there's certain things we don't need to do, which we need to do. For our physical data center, we need to look after that. We need to maintain it. We need to water it, to make sure that everything runs. We don't have that in the cloud because the vendor takes on that responsibility. But then there's a different set. So, we try to align our technologies and capabilities. So once again, when we're working in cloud, we focus more on Linux, and we want to use standard Linux image builds. We do have some Windows in there, but we also look to take advantage of what we call the native services that our cloud providers provide to us, because an important part of our strategy, for example, is software as a service. We have so much to do in DWP. We don't need to be reinventing the wheel. So we try to adopt those standard services and build them into the offerings that DWP provides. So, once again, it's such a big kind of subject area, but I hope that kind of at least brings a little bit of transparency to the technologies that we really invest in and deliver against in DWP.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Bryan, for that level of detail. And you're absolutely right. And, audience, I want you to remember we're the largest government department, so the scale of the operation is absolutely massive. And what I'm hearing is that we're finding creative ways to solve our business problems. And that should be very exciting for you in terms of, your value in terms of helping us solve those problems. So we've got a number of roles within infrastructure engineering, as I mentioned. Perhaps you can tell us more about some of your critical roles.
Yeah, sure. So the critical roles that we have at the minute are very much in the network space, for example, the software-defined networks. They're very much, key roles to us at the minute. This is within our business plan for this year to achieve the outcomes there. And the security operational roles as well, they're very much key roles to us because, it's an evolving threat out there. So that's one of those areas where we need maturity and we need to always be advancing. You can't stay static in the security position. I think an important part to cover on all of this as well is that the roles that we have, they do scale, from the junior roles, where we'd expect people to be coming in with experiences, etc. But there is obviously space for development, and that's really all the way up to those expert roles as well. And within the expert roles, that's where we're looking for people who've got, demonstrable experience, against the essential, the critical roles and the essential criteria that's detailed within those roles.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Bryan, for bringing that up in terms of the different levels of expertise and the learning and development and support that we can offer as well. So, Bryan, can you tell us some of the key technical skills that you need?
Yes. So, when we talk about the key technical skills, essentially what we are looking for here as an infrastructure engineer really is the ability to basically define infrastructure as code. That's one of the key capabilities that we have. Now, we also do have a traditional footprint and traditional services. So what I would be saying is that if people have got more traditional skill sets, they shouldn't be deterred from these roles, because that's just as essential. And DWP are very much about investing in people. We need a broad range of capabilities from the traditional legacy. As I say, we still have mainframe systems, all the way up to the cutting edge. So, if I'm talking certain technology types, I don't want to be too explicit here, because the vacancies themselves will detail them out specifically. But, we are talking the types of technology around, for example, Puppet, Ansible and Ansible Tower, Terraform. They're the types of languages that we use to define how we build infrastructure. So experience within them, and the varying degree of experience really to the role that people are applying for is key in that space. Automation is another part. Obviously, some of those tools support automation and configuration management, but they're key technologies. When we talk about, for example, the way that we do this and deliver as well, so an acknowledgement of what we often call CI/CD pipelines. So, for example, we use services like GitLab, and CI/CD automation, Jenkins and stuff like that. So people who've got experience using these modern technologies about how you both, kind of design, build, test, and ultimately deliver IT. But as I say, the critical thing is look at the vacancies, because the specific technologies will be defined within there.
Fantastic. Thank you, Bryan. So let's change gears a little bit. Looking holistically, what kind of attributes do you look for outside of the technical skills?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because it really isn't just about the actual technical skills themselves. It's just as much about the person, and certainly their approach to basically technology and capabilities there. So we need the right mindset, delivery type mentality is key, because we're often working to very tight timescales. We got lots of pressures to deliver, so very much can-do attitude there. But also with that as well, some of the softer side, but supports those technical attributes, is a test-driven mentality. We're talking about roles here where we're going to be kind of creating code and reusable code. So people who've got a natural built-in drive, for example, around test-driven delivery. So whether that's what we call BDD, which is business-driven development test, or TDD, which is basically test-driven development, between those skills are great, because that actually ensures quality, which is incredibly important to us. And that really drives me on to the next thing, automate everything. We're so busy, we don't want to be introducing what we'd call technical debt or toil into our world. So, people who've got a focus on automating the things that they do, because ultimately that saves us time and enables us on focusing better value to the business, as opposed to doing repeated tasks. I'd also say as well, aspiring to reliability concerns is very important, because basically, as we've said here, the dependency on our business services is critical basically to the operational running of DWP. So having concerns about how we make our services available and reliable is absolutely critical to us delivering our services. So people with that mindset, they're going to push us forward as an organization.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Bryan. So don't forget to send in your questions, okay? Type it out in the Teams chat window now, so it's ready for our upcoming Q&A segment. So I'm going to change gear now. I'm going to talk about the application process, because this is an important piece as well, okay? So what's the best way to apply for a role with us, and what can you expect from your candidate journey? If you haven't already, please sign up for our dedicated DWP Digital Careers website. Okay, so it's careers.dwp.gov.uk/subscribe. Once you're signed up, you get weekly notifications on live roles with us. So it may take some of that proactive work of always checking the site. Here's the plug again, careers.dwp.gov.uk//subscribe. Okay. Hopefully you'll be able to see us advertised in lots of different places, which should all lead you to the apply link via Civil Service Jobs website. To underline, we cannot accept directly emailed CVs or anything offline, so you must apply via Civil Service job posting on the website. If you have any questions, there should always be a name contact on our advert, so get in touch and we'll do our best to answer. Emphasis on the do our best. We manage multiple vacancies. We really do try to follow up on all queries. So if you find that you haven't received a response, please send another query, okay? And I'm sure we'll get to it. You can also contact the recruitment team for an initial chat about the role and how to get the most out of your application. This is a good segue to talk about top tips for your application. Now, Bryan has done a really good job of talking about the synergies and the persona of an infrastructure engineer. But I urge you to always look at the detail of the job posting in front of you. We typically ask for you to send a personal statement and a CV submission. It's important that you structure your statement around the essential criteria as defined. If we're asking for a particular technology stack and you have it, tell us. The same for a particular methodology. Tell us, okay? Make it very evident and obvious that you have that skill. You need to demonstrate that you have the skills and experience by showing us what you've done. So contextualize it within your current work experience or your wider work experience. We want to see how you've done it. Once you've applied, our policy embodies fair and open competition rules, which means that every single application is viewed anonymously by our hiring managers. If successful, you'll be invited to book your interview online in the slots provided. Now, the recruitment process is a one-stop, so it's a single video interview, and our aim is to have a 4-week end-to-end recruitment process from the point of interview to offer. Now, truthfully, this is not always possible for different reasons, but we strive to always give you a rough guesstimation of what to expect in terms of shortlist and interview dates. And if we need to keep adverts running longer, we will email you to let you know what's going on. It's sometimes the way that we're looking for, 7 offers from a campaign, etc., etc., etc. We will always endeavor to let you know what's going on in the process. All right. So as we're collecting your live questions, we're just going to discuss some common questions we often get as recruiters here at DWP Digital, and we do get some funny ones. So while we talk about these, it's a good opportunity to send in any questions you may have. Increasingly, my colleagues and I are being asked questions around remote working. Our position is such: we're working remotely as a result of the lockdown measures presently. In a post-lockdown scenario, most teams will want to work in a hybrid way, with some days in the office and others at home. Frankly, we're still working it out, but at this moment in time, that is our position. Some teams will want a stronger office presence and others won't. So it's worth emailing the recruiter to find out what that particular hiring manager's position is on this. For your information, our digital hubs are based in Leeds, London, Newcastle, Sheffield, Blackpool and Manchester. Each of the hubs is a modern, vibrant workplace that was designed for and by members of our digital community. So I want to highlight that working for DWP Digital is truly an amazing experience as you work alongside people who care passionately about public service, about making a difference and delivering for the customers. Don't forget, we're the UK's biggest government department with over 85,000 diverse and brilliant people in the various teams. We're very much an equal opportunity employer. We welcome applications from anyone. Also, as an organization, we really believe in developing our teams and culture. Okay. So I'm going to bring Bryan back in. I'm sure you've heard enough of me. So, Bryan, would you mind explaining to our viewers about the potential to develop their career within DWP Digital and the potential pathways they can take?
Oh, yeah, sure, Mimi. I mean, joining DWP as a lead infrastructure engineer, really, you are joining a vibrant engineering community, a practice, as we say. And that engineering practice basically covers all of those disciplines within engineering. So, you know, the infrastructure engineer is just one of those disciplines, and that's a big community. So when we talk, for example, in the infrastructure space, that's a community of around 240 people, with an overall engineering community of around 500 to 600 people. So you'll be joining a massive organization. But within that practice, basically all the career pathways and roles are laid out. So if you're talking about a specific role, all of that's defined through all the various, the grades. So from a junior role all the way up to an expert role, and it provides all the detailed information about basically what the requirements are, in terms of experience that you need to be achieving with that. But for people as well who are interested in joining the department, there's also opportunity to move around and to join others. So where the engineering practice, for example, is laid out well there, within infrastructure and within engineering, sometimes the natural path is for people to move towards architecture. And DWP really offers that ability to switch practices, to move between, so if people haven't fully defined what their career pathways are, that's absolutely fine, because if I talk about me personally, I've been with the department now over 20 years. I was doing software development in university, and I thought this is not really working for me, and I joined the private sector. I actually took a job temporarily with the department. I was only supposed to be here 3 months, people, 20 years later. But I started working in job centres. I didn't have my career fully defined and pathed out for me. And I just feel really lucky that I joined an organisation like DWP that invested in me and give me the opportunity. And from somebody who was working in local job centres, that was really important for me. I come from an area in Manchester which is fairly socially deprived. I can see the benefit of how DWP helps us on a day-to-day basis. And as I say now, I'm in a position where I'm leading the delivery of transforming DWP's overall IT estate. And with that, I can really see the benefit of how that actually transforms and improves the lives of citizens. So I went slightly off topic there, but the point is DWP really does. We have a very strong practice in place. Many practices covering across all the disciplines. There's a strong framework in there, and people do have the ability to both progress within a chosen career or move across into other areas as well.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing your journey, Bryan. Actually, it's really compelling. So thank you for that. So I'm going to press you in terms of opportunities. So what opportunity are there for people to upskill and progress within their specialism?
So there's always opportunities, as these vacancies are out, there's always going to be more vacancies. Once you've come into DWP, it isn't just through internal progression, then you can apply for more roles and just progress through that. But there's always opportunities that's coming up, and there's always opportunities to progress individual specialisms. So, within your career and within that practice, there's opportunities to invest in training, to build up new skills, and to become really specialist within particular areas. And as that technology evolves, we're not a static organization. We're always changing. So people are naturally going to change with that. And DWP provides that to the people to meet their needs, so we can meet our business needs back.
Fantastic. Bryan, what's the community of infrastructure engineers like? How many people does it have? What backgrounds, experience do they have?
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting, and the truth is it's a mixed bag. We really do have really diverse and rich people that work for us from varying backgrounds. We are, as you've said, we are a massive government organisation, the largest IT government organisation. And with the importance of our IT systems, we're comparable to people like banks. A lot of our systems are what we call CNI, so critical national infrastructure. So, in terms of the community, though, with regards to infrastructure engineering, I was kind of saying earlier, we are talking around 240 people of infrastructure engineers within that, and they come from a varied background, part of a much wider engineering organisation, which is 500-600 plus. The backgrounds, we're talking about people who are recently out of education, and they may be on an apprenticeship, or they may be in a midterm part of the roles that they're working with DWP on. But we've also got people who've come from traditional data center backgrounds and have been in that role for 30 years. So as I say, we have an on-premise estate. We absolutely need to work with and service those as well. And it also provides opportunities for people who are from a more traditional background to start actually pivoting towards the newer technologies.
Absolutely. So collaboration, what sorts of opportunities are there to meet up and share ideas and network with separate teams?
Well, I mean, it's become more challenging in COVID, hasn't it? But the reality is, we're all stuck at home at the minute. But I don't feel that that's blunted at all. Our approach to collaboration, and that's the great thing with DWP is that it's a very much inclusive community. And it's not just about collaborating for work, it's collaborating socially as well, because that's just as important to our lives as just basically the work that we deal with on a day-to-day basis. We've invested as an organization strongly. We see the value of collaboration. By collaborating, that's how we get our best outcomes, by working together as a team. How do we do that? We've invested heavily in technology. Today, we're all talking on Teams. That's a great example about how DWP collaborate. We have intranet services, and within those intranet services, we have working community groups, but we also have other groups based on diversity, etc. Women in digital being an example, LGBT groups. So there's a really strong community on our intranet services. For the more technical side of things, we use Slack. So a lot of our engineering community, for example, they collaborate on Slack and they have groups set up on there. And with all of that technology as well, we use these technologies so we can socialize after working as well and get together and start, learning about each other on a more personal level, which is challenging when we can't meet up in the flesh at the minute. So it's a really collaborative environment that we work in, and we definitely have the tools which support that.
Fantastic. Glad to hear that there is support for people's well-being thought of there. So very good. To add, we recognize the need for flexibility in the workplace, and we have empowered our employees with reasonable control over their working hours. We found as a result, there is more commitment to and effective delivery of business objectives. So we have a 37-hour full-time working week, varying start and finish times. You can accrue flexi credits and deficits. We offer a very generous pension package and great online benefits as well, including, family social events at some key UK attractions when we can get out and about again. We really want to communicate our openness and understanding around flexible work. And we've got opportunities for, pro rata, part-time around commitments you may have. We take very seriously your work-life balance, and we have rolled out family-friendly policies and, have an understanding of general life commitments. Please don't forget that if you have a specific question, type away now. We're happy to answer. Okay. So, I mean, Bryan already talked a little bit about this. Just before we dive into our Q&A session, I wanted Bryan to give a little bit of a picture of his particular journey. Bryan, is there anything that you wanted to flesh out, or perhaps you might want to inspire people in terms of, obviously, it doesn't really matter what their background is, it just, go for the opportunities, perhaps.
Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely. I think if I was going to, say to anything that was looking at joining DWP at the minute, I think what I'd be talking about is really the big transformational journey that DWP is on. We've talked a lot about scale, Mimi, haven't we? The scale of DWP. And, we've been on an amazing journey now for, 5 years. When I approached some of this, we had all of our IT outsourced. And as I sit here today, we've insourced everything, and that's an absolutely phenomenal achievement. And to do that, we've had to build this capability internally to do it. But we don't stop there, because we've insourced that now. But there's lots of technical debt in there, and there's things that we do need to improve to really meet our aspirations as an organisation, and those set across the government. Cloud first. Government digital services and their service standards. There's so much more work to do. And I'd say to anybody looking to join DWP, it's an absolutely amazing time to join, because there's just so much work, and it's truly exciting work. Because, for example, when we talk about the networks, we have one of the largest networks in Europe, and we're not just talking about, we have like the local network estate, which basically operates our data centers in cloud. We have a wide area network as well. There was just some notification out the other day, we're adding 80 job centers to our network, to address some of the issues with COVID. How are we going to connect those networks? Well, I'm sure people who apply for the network and infrastructure roles are going to be part of that expansion of the wide area network. We're doing that using software-defined networks, which is new technologies. So it's just so exciting. There's just so much opportunity to do the next thing. And that's very much, what DWP about, is transforming our services. And I'd welcome anybody to really get involved in that. And I just absolutely assure you will not regret it, and you certainly won't be bored.
Definitely not. At this time, myself and Bryan are going to address your questions. So the lovely Rianne has helped us collate some of those, and she'll help us sort of structure this segment.
Hi, Mimi. Hi, Bryan.
Hello, Rianne.
Hi. So I'm just going to go right into it, because we're kind of over time, but you both covered a lot there, but we have a few questions. So I'll start with you, Mimi. So how flexible are DWP in regards of home working arrangements, and how has the policy on remote working changed with the events of the pandemic? And that's from Nathan from Lincolnshire.
Okay, Nathan, the truth is we're still working it out. That is the truth. There has been talk in terms of transforming the hubs into more sort of collaborative spaces. And what we can deduce by that is, perhaps in terms of, available desk spaces, that might shorten in number. So I can't give you a straightforward answer, but what I can say is I don't see us being regressive in this area. I see us being progressive. As I mentioned earlier, I think that for a lot of the hiring managers, there's still an appetite for co-joining in a physical space. So that's important for them. So the most important thing is the hiring manager, with the job in front of you. So as I mentioned, if there's any ambiguity about that, reach out to the named recruiter, and they can set you straight with regards to what that hiring manager's expectations are around those. But that is currently our position, Nathan. We're still working it out.
Okay, and then we've got another one from Nathan. So I'll send this to Bryan. Is there a shift away from a DC-centric compute and the DWP? And is your vision for a more cloud-based architecture for all your services? And in addition to that, how large are your AWS GCP ecosystems?
No, great question. Great question. So to pick up the on-premise hosting part of that question, Nathan, our on-premise services basically are incredibly important to us. We host what we call critical national infrastructure services, and they're the kind of services that you do want to keep close to you. So, and as I say, an on-premise data center footprint is important to us. But for me, the thing, and I always talk about, is we are hybrid hosting. So that is about having cloud hosting services. That's about having on-premise hosting services. But the key thing there is about conjoining them, bringing them together. It's how can we work in a way that, because cloud brings us some great modern ways of working, but how can we leverage that into the way that we work on-premise? And that's what all of the transformation's about. So we're absolutely investing in our data center, but we are trying to invest in our data center to make it more modern in the way that kind of, our cloud providers work. In terms of, we don't use Google Cloud Platform, we use AWS and we use Azure. We've got an adequately sized footprint on both of those platforms. In reality, we probably do use AWS more than we use Azure, just naturally. But part of that as well is it's not about getting the biggest footprint you can, and that's, one of the questions is what does, an infrastructure engineer do? It's about defining the way that we build infrastructure, so we absolutely make it robust. We're getting good value for money in the resources that we deploy there. So I'm probably going into too much detail here, but it's such a broad subject and a really great question, and I hope I've been able to answer it for you, Nathan.
That's great. You did a 2 for 1 in that one, Bryan. It was great. It's great. There is a second part to Nathan's question as well. What would you define as SaaS, and could you give an example?
So for me, what I define as SaaS is software as a service. Generally you've got three, but there's many different areas, but you have what we call IaaS, which is infrastructure as a service. Then you have PaaS, which is platform as a service. And then you have SaaS, which is software as a service. And ultimately what each of them mean is how much involvement we have as a business, as an organization, in the maintenance and running of that. And where we have, for example, so Office 365, for example, is a SaaS service, and all we do with that service is we consume it, and the maintenance and the operation and the running of that is basically all with the vendor, and if we move down that to like a platform as a service, then, we manage and run the service itself, but all of the underpinning technology, we don't need to get involved in that because the vendor who provides it does it for us. Whereas when we get to what we call infrastructure as a service, that's effectively where we're just basically getting compute or storage, and we're basically building and running all the services. So we're dealing with it holistically. So once again, I hope that's been able to answer what SaaS means to me anyway.
Perfect. Okay, Mimi, I'm going to come to you now. And this question's from Lee from Manchester. So do your digital hubs have any specializations, or are they all multidisciplinary?
I would say they're pretty multidisciplinary. I'm just thinking about it now, and frankly, I've only been to 3 of the offices as well, but the 3 I went to, yes, I would say that pretty multidisciplinary, not so specialized. Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Can I just come in on that a little bit as well? I mean, absolutely, the answer to that question is definitely multidisciplinary. I think what you'd see, though, geographically, for example, is certain business areas. So we're the Department for Work and Pensions, so we cover quite a broad range of business services. So, for example, pensions, working age, disability, and what you tend to find, for example, the pension space is typically in the northeast. So you'll see more work around pensions in that space, where, for example, some of the health stuff runs out of Leeds. So you'll see more work there. There's a big footprint in London around universal credit. So it's very much multidisciplinary. Anybody in any hub location can work, virtually across those areas. but you do tend to see some gravity towards the business, where the business naturally sits. We'll find that the IT services that support them gravitas towards them.
Perfect. And then I think we'll come to our final question. I think you have answered this, but we'll go to it anyway. So it's from Steve, and he said, are you a hybrid cloud with Microsoft or AWS or another? And I think you mentioned we were AWS. And just again, you might want to just go over, do we have defined office locations? So just a quick summary.
Yeah, sure. So I mean, as I've said there, hybrid cloud for us, hybrid means about, basically having on-premise and having public cloud. And it's not just about having an on-premise and a public cloud. It's about how we orchestrate them together. That's the thing that makes us hybrid. When we talk about our specific office locations, I think we have covered it, but as we say, we have a presence in London, which is, Caxton House in Westminster. We have a presence in Leeds, which is Quarry House. We have Manchester, central Manchester, which is basically where I'm based when we are in the offices. We have Sheffield, King's Court. We have a location there. The other campus site we have is in the northeast. We actually share that with other government departments, and that's Benton Park View. And there's a couple more sites around there as well. So generally, when we talk about the campus sites, we do talk about the core main sites. But in some instances, there's actually, for example, the northeast, there's about 3 buildings which we have people occupied in. They're in a very small kind of geographical location of one another, though.
Perfect. I think that's all of the questions. I don't think there's any more in the chat. So back to you, Mimi.
Thank you so much, Rianne. And we have come to the end of proceedings, guys. Thank you so much for making this a rich discussion. We're going to close the webinar now, and thank you again for joining us today. We look forward to seeing your applications. Remember to check out our advertised roles at our careers site. So that's careers.dwp.gov.uk. Remember, guys, look at the role in front of you. Look at the essential criteria, and with regards to your personal statement write-up, write around those and really be very obvious about the skills that you have, with the mentality of aligning it with the essential criteria and the spec in front of you. Okay, we don't want to miss out on your great talent. So I think, yes, the website address has also been posted in the message chat. So be sure to copy and paste that before we leave tonight. And I just want to say massive thank you to Bryan Nelson for joining this evening, and all of you viewers for tuning in as well. So I'm also going to get Bryan to say goodbye as well.
No, thank you for this opportunity, everybody, and listening to me, really. And, as Mimi says, we really hope that this has been informative to you. We hope we've given some good advice as well around, basically applying for jobs within DWP and what really to focus on. And really, we hope to hear from you in the future. We really, really do. And thank you for your time.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody.